Hello my friends and welcome. You see what I see? Yeah, that's the Pokrovsk direction where Ukrainian army goes full in on a counterattack. For the last 24 hours Ukraine has propelled towards Kucherov Yar, closer taking this part of the ground. Also from Vilna there was the counterattack of Ukrainian army, plus the fights are now going in this encircled direction. Why encircled? Because Russian army was trapped here. So I guess that in the coming days we're gonna see this update, and the Russians, they have nowhere to go, especially those who are located now in Kucherov Yar. By the way, their Ukrainian army is also counterattacking. The fights are going for this piece of land. So little by little, Ukraine increases the pressure on Russian forces which were trapped in this region. And it is happening every day. This update was released the day before yesterday, so the previous one, where Ukraine not yet been able to capture this territory, or it's better to say liberate if we speak about the Ukrainian army counteroffensive, not the Russian one. And here there was also further movement as for today. But here we see that Ukraine already moved towards Vladimirivka, yes, with infantry forces, backed up by Ukrainian drones, which definitely means that all of those Russian strikes, they basically failed towards the same village. Let's go to interactive map, also from the same analytic Michael73. The link for his media is in the video description just below. Thank you Michael73 for doing this job, analyzing all of the drone videos and geolocating what is actually happening on the front lines. And you may see how many of the Russian vehicles definitely were lost here. It is absolute craziness. Actually, I haven't seen those vehicle losses in Ruzzian and near Boykivka. Let's check it out. So here we have infantry carrying vehicles, maybe BMPs, being kaputted in this particular direction. It's their previous state when they were spotted, and this is after, so definitely Russia has losses. They use convoys for attacks. Well, this particular one had just a couple of the vehicles, but Russia may send more. Plus, Russians also lost one of the tanks. Let's check it out. Yeah, it was confirmed, probably because of, yeah, here we go, Russian tank. Hangar tank, also geolocated using the image from the satellites. Plus, we have one more Russian attack attempt. Some of the BMPs are burning. Wow. Here we have 1, 2, 3 of the vehicles. They tried to cross this small river, but they were not capable to do it, probably even stuck in the mud. Here we have both drone drops and FPV drones in operation. Where Russians were capable to propel to is a little bit further towards Mirnograd, to be more precise towards Kozatska and Balagan villages, mostly with infantry forces. All of the vehicles again were kaputted. Russians managed to get the local power station under their control. And this is, yeah, it's MTLB, which they used to get to that position. It was destroyed by Ukraine, but after all, Russians managed to land their infantry forces, as I told you, with some of the extra reinforcements. A couple of more of the vehicles, they were kaputted also on the way. And judging on this video, I'm telling you that infantry wasn't capable to land at this power plant from this maneuver. They went to the local forest line, and later on Ukraine tried to flatline those Russian soldiers with the help of the drone drops, which are pretty much effective. So this is a very heavy fighting zone. But still, I'm very happy that Ukraine has initiative and advantage in this northern direction, Dobropilya, and there is the chance actually to go to Novotorezhsk once again and to jam Russian forces from two of the sides, creating, as people call it, a snowman. Why snowman? Because from the rabbit, with two of the attack vectors on the north, yeah, it was looking like a rabbit. Now we almost have a snowman. 1, 2, and it should be 3 over here. Ukraine just needs to cut the supply completely and it will be no-go for Russia. Well, actually it's already been cut because all of the transport is unable to get to those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 villages, 6 actually villages. And you see why. All of the attempts of the Russian army to move to this direction using vehicles are absolutely cancelled. The situation on the front lines in Pokrovsk-Dobropilya direction reminds me 2023, when Russia attacked with those big vehicle convoys. In 2024 it was not that much, but 2025 almost nothing, but here they renew it. And you know, I look at this military map and I compare it to the information which we obtained from Ukrainian intelligence and Ukrainian officials before, including President Zelensky, who stated that Russia is getting ready for the massive attack in autumn, And is it really happening? Yeah, if it is like that, it means that it sucks. Because really, Russia, what is happening? You have so incompetent command. They send the forces to one way, literally, with the heaviest losses possible. And what's the outcome? What they took recently, they put Vladimirovka into the gray area. Well, okay, Ukraine started one more counterattack here. They propelled to Shakhova, but Ukraine cancelled everything of this. So maybe it's the only here. Yeah, it's the only profitable direction for Russia where they were capable to land the forces who run out of the burning vehicle towards this power station or the local forest patch or those buildings. That's it. There is no freaking success for Russians. And if you calculate all of those vehicles, by the way, there was one more convoy here. It is really hard to even describe and judge those Russian losses. And Russian military bloggers, they also scream about it. Some of the more or less independent bloggers. They say, what are we doing? We want to get again Zoloty Kolodets, a Ukrainian defense line, to break through here, but it's too late. You know, there was the partial success of the Russian army, and by that time, the same day, Russians broke through Ukrainian defense, gaining lots of the territory, 17 kilometers per couple of days, maybe maximum 3 days. By that particular time, Russia should have sent reinforcements, but they didn't have a thing here. And I would say that this thing was a pure lack for Russians. Ukraine simply didn't have enough infantry forces to protect this part of the front lines. Russians, first of all, advanced with the sabotage groups, then they caused some of the panic among Ukrainian defenders behind the front lines, so our guys decided to retreat, and Russia sent more reinforcements, no longer sabotage groups. But it was not enough to create some sort of the bridgehead and hold those positions. That's why this attack for Russia is the total freaking disaster, and I'm very, very happy that it is happening like that Ukraine managed to get very capable forces and cause Russia absolutely tremendous madness on the front line. This situation is just horrific for them. They try to send reinforcements to save those Russians who are trapped, plus gain the previously lost territories, because Gerasimov already put Zoloty Kolodets, for example, on his big military map. Probably he also reported to Putin, oh, we broke through the main defense line of Ukraine, but now for sure he is not reporting the catastrophe for the Russian army in this direction, and all of the attempts, you see, yeah, how they finish. It is no words, guys, what Russians experience nowadays out there, and they try to change the tactics. Okay, small groups are not working. Let's try 2023 convoy attacks. They're not working either. Well, I got the question whether Ukraine actually planned this operation, letting Russian in and then jam them, trap them, cut them. No, it was not planned like that, but it happened. And again, I'm very, very satisfied about the current situation. Judging on the current Ukrainian resources, judging on conditions on the front lines, this is the best case possible in Pokrovsk and Dobropilya direction. Our guys did really heroic job here, and they continue to cut Russian army. And of course, I will update you about Ukrainian success in this area. And I'm sure that in a close-by perspective, Russians will not be able to break initiative in this point of the front lines. You see how they try, but nothing is happening. Alright, and we have one more video published from the left flank of the Dobropilya direction, where Russians again try to use their vehicles. They are geolocated and confirmed already. Oh my god, they are moving further and further. In the best case scenario, they're landing infantry in those 3 lines, and later on, especially during the night time, they're very well spotted by thermal cameras. Well, this attack again didn't go well for Russians, absolutely terrible, crazy losses. And what they're trying to achieve here, guys, it is not understandable for me. They continue to use the tactics of the Second World War, even though Ukraine has lots and lots of the drones. Well, still, it's better not to underestimate our enemy, Russia. They also have drones, they also have assault forces, aviation gliding bombs, and there are losses for Ukraine as well. In this particular direction, There are more losses for Russia, obviously, but if we check out analytics, military maps, and also Russian channels, they also show similar videos, with less of the vehicles. Mostly they hit Ukrainian infantry, plus artillery and supplies behind the front line, because they have those kind of the drones like Landsats. Plus they have long-range fiber optic drones, and they were capable even to hit some of the vehicles in Kramatorsk, which is pretty much far away from the front lines, and I published one of those videos on my channel. So the threat from Russia is really huge, and I still do not understand how Ukraine is capable to withstand this massive attack. I mean, in general, those strikes from Russia. Well, as I continue to say, the incompetence of some of the Russian local commanders and generals plays in favor for Ukraine. If Ukraine had all of those resources that Russia has, Ukraine would have occupied or deoccupied its own territory very fast. But Russia, despite all of those things, they're still bogged down in Ukraine quite significantly, because Ukraine developed its forces, drone army, and Ukraine has a way more competent command compared to Russians. But still, do not underestimate Russians. If they would like to attack, for example, Baltic countries and Baltic armies, they're in lack of everything, drones, experience, army men, well, it's gonna be completely different story. That's why I continue to say that threat from Russia is very, very big for Ukraine, but also for NATO. And we're gonna return to this topic in this video because Mark Rutte, NATO secretary, it seems like he went completely crazy. He is sugarcoating what is happening and what potentially could happen if Russia attacks NATO. Alright, now let's check different maps. So we have this update from Deep State Military Map Source. It was yesterday, it is today. They confirmed the movement of Ukrainian army. But also, as we know already, Ukraine advanced towards Pankivka from this direction, so it should be at least colored. Well, it's already in a gray zone, that's why they do not specify it, And we have detailed review of Vladimirivka if we zoom in really there. So this is the vector of Ukrainian counterattack towards Mayak village. Before, Russians tried to get to destroy the bridge over there, but they failed. Also, they moved to Vladimirivka using this road, and partially they turned the forces into Vladimirivka from north, but also they were kaputted, and there could be still presence of some of the separate infantry units just occasionally. That's why it is in a gray zone, but Ukraine strikes towards the new direction. And for Russia, well, it could be kind of interesting because their forces over here in those trenches are now under the threat. Well done, Ukraine, with this operation, counterattacks, everything so far is going really according to plan. Not Putin's plan, no, after all, Ukrainian plan in Pokrovsk. And also we have some interesting news coming from Alexeyevka village of the Sumy region. The events described in this village by Russian military bloggers as catastrophic ones, and they say that they'll have to withdraw from it. Well, actually, Russia before did absolutely everything to keep this village under control. They partially withdrew from it, then they sent some of the reinforcements, then they took it again, and now Ukraine sent some of the reinforcements, and Russians now say that they'll have to go to Vladimirivka, it's, as they mentioned, 100%. So we'll see, this week could bring very interesting news for Ukraine, like positive news for us, They're already positive in Pokrovsk, but could be also positive from this direction in Sumy, because the Russian army actually took the part of the reinforcements from Sumy region and sent them to KA or flat line, in Pokrovsk. You know, guys, I analyzed those frontline updates for almost entire war, and I would say that the biggest Russian mistake, which I still do not understand, is that they continue to attack from multiple of the directions. They disperse their forces. They are unable to concentrate in one specific spot to gain some of the advantage over Ukraine. Even though they have prevailing forces, it doesn't necessarily mean that they might have some tactical even success. I still do not know why Russia is fighting like that. Maybe they want to attract Ukrainian army elsewhere on the front lines, but at the same time Russian army doesn't have those significant reserves, and the attacking army should have at least 3 times more soldiers compared to defending side, and not just soldiers but all of the resources. For this reason, even though the Russian army is big, but they still have those small advancements elsewhere on the front lines, but in some directions like Pokrovsk, no, they're losing. And that's the reality of the current war. Blitzkrieg is not possible for Russia. It's going to be a very long, exhausting war if the policy of Russian army and the Russian political crazy management continues. The place where Russia now attacks is over here in Dnipropetrovsk region, and somehow they were capable to expand the gray area in Oleksiivka. Actually, according to my information, they didn't go here from this place, they went from Verbove village with some of the sabotage group that counted many of the soldiers actually. So it was several days ago, and it is right now. Ukraine is working now with drones on that village. And here is the update. Yeah, you see Russians took Myrna village under control, but I may say that they slowed down a little in this direction. Alright, now let's go to another news and let's listen to this clown Secretary of NATO Mark Rutte, who is probably a cuckold or something. Yeah, can we use this name here for him? Because probably he likes then Russian drones and fighter jets are flying into the NATO airspace, and he says that we're not gonna shut them down because maybe they're quite peaceful. Let's listen.
But why would you shoot down a plane which is not posing a direct threat? I mean, that would be silly. I mean, we have done this for 60, 70 years as NATO. We have worked with the Soviets and now with the Russians. It is not new.
Why would you shut down the plane? It's just a Russian plane, who cares? And let's go to one more quote of this clown, and later on I'm gonna tell you what I think, literally. Well, I think I already mentioned my opinion about this particular topic, but I want to say more, like expand this question, yeah?
But obviously, let's not overstate what Russia is capable of. And we know that their fighter jet pilots are famously not successful in steering these fighter jets, and their captains do not know how to lower an anchor. So, given all the stuff they create on the seabed.
So he continued to tell that we are so mighty as a NATO organization that Russia is just not capable to even reach our level. Their fighter jet pilots they're crazy. Balalaika, vodka, let's go fly, ooh, wow. Ruta, it's not like that. And I'm sure that in case of the full-scale conflict between Russia and NATO, NATO will be very surprised because they are not freaking ready, and they show that they are not ready. And this rhetoric actually encourages Putin. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's start from Putin, yeah, and how he threatens sometimes NATO, Western countries, of how he and Russia might use nuclear weapons. It is happening through many of the voices, sometimes kind of rare, but we heard from Putin. Since Donald Trump was elected, it's not happening every interview because Donald Trump simply doesn't like this, as he calls, N-word, which means nuclear. So Putin lowered this rhetorics, and indeed, Russia has lots of the nuclear weapons. Arsenal is damn huge. Russia is the first nuclear country. They have more nuclear warheads than United States of America. So everyone knows the potential that Russia definitely might use all of the stuff and destroy entire world. But at the same time, I guess all of the world leaders understand that Russia is not interested really to use those nukes. After all, you see, having this capability and willing to use all of that stuff is not the same thing. And we see it in the history of this war, that many times Russian red lines, then Putin stated, okay, we're gonna use the nukes, all of those lines have been crossed. Now with Tomahawk, there's going to be maybe one more red line. I just hope that the United States will supply to Ukraine at least few of the Tomahawks, because they could be very, very successful against some of the Russian military infrastructure. Especially, I think the main target could be the factory where Russia produces Shahid drones. But let's speak about Putin. World leaders also understand that Putin lives kind of the luxury life. He is not that outcast. He is not like that religious fanatic dictator. No, he likes money. He likes luxury stuff. He has lovers and unregistered kids from those lovers. No, he lives normal, fancy life. So probability for him to use nukes and kaput everything around, also the stuff that he likes and loves, well, this probability is very low. Unlike, for example, with Iranian dictators, or as it was already with Afghanistan guy Osama bin Laden. Then he was actually forced to live in a cave after what he have done. So it was definitely a fanatic mindset. So he sacrificed his normal living for some really terrible event as for us, but for him it was a huge achievement that was worth his comfort life. For Putin it will absolutely not work like that, and people understand that. Donald Trump understands that. So all of that Putin's bluffing about nuclear weapons, it's not serious. Yes, he potentially may use nukes at any freaking moment because he has those. But the probability, it's similar to winning multi-billion-dollar lottery. With Putin, especially because we know his portrait. But the same exact situation is now happening with NATO. Rutte says, we are so strong, we are so mighty, we can destroy like everything. And Russia is not even close to our mighty power. But at the same time, Russian airplanes are flying to the NATO airspace, drones are flying, and NATO is not doing a thing to shut down those drones over their own military bases. Like, what the hell is happening? And Putin sees everything of that, and he understands the bluffing because he's bluffing himself with his nuclear weapons. So he looks at the signal from the Secretary of NATO that Russian airplanes do not possess threat. Okay, next time let's send them deeper into NATO airspace. Let's see, then they will be triggered, by us. Or more drones, more cable cuts, any sort of the sabotage acts. Putin might try to reach those red lines of NATO, which are absent, as we see. So this clown Rutte definitely encourages Russia for this escalation act without being physically capable to defend NATO airspace against drones. Shutting down the Russian airplane in your airspace is pretty much logical. It's the violation of your territory. Doesn't matter if it is ground or air. As Rutte says, no, it's a big difference. No, it's not. It's not according to any sort of the law. According to jurisdiction, your territory is also airspace that goes infinite to the space. So it doesn't even matter at what altitude Russian planes fly. And how do military airplanes are not possessing any threat for your country? They are first of all military. They fly with ammunition, with rockets. They were pictured by your own NATO fighter jets, by pilots. Those images are available in internet. Like, Rutte, what the hell are you talking about? Well, here with those kind of the statements, Rutte confirms my deepest, I would say, fears about NATO organization, that it might be similar to United Nations. They have tons of the bureaucrats, something is happening out there, money are flowing, but what could happen in case of the real escalation? Like, it is already happening, this escalation, and they're doing absolutely zero. Repositioning your fancy F-35 airplanes from one country to another closer to Russia does not resolve this problem because they are not in use against the Russian airplanes. They were used just occasionally against some of the Russian drones. Then they really entered Polish airspace, lots of them, 19 at least, and just 4 were shut down. And Rutte simply doesn't understand the potential threat of the full-scale war on the ground with Russia, because Russian army, it will be successful. At least initially, maybe in the midterm, they will be successful because they have drones. Every kind of the drones, Lancets, Shahids, FPV, everything Russia has. NATO has Nothing. Drone army is not yet been created in any sort of the NATO country. They do not understand, it seems like, what is happening and what kind of the realities are out there. For Ukraine, it is logical. And why Ukraine was capable to stop Russians? Because technologies of this war were developed simultaneously, yeah? Drone technologies, FPV drones, they developed almost at the same time for Russia and Ukraine. That's why it's very hard for those two sides to fight against each other. That's why the front lines are boiling, but Russia is not moving that fast. Little by little, it's taking territories. But imagine Russia drone army is fighting against undeveloped NATO army. Why undeveloped? Because no drone protection for their tanks, vehicles. They still look like they are taken from the parades. Electronic anti-drone warfare just occasionally. Its own drone army is basically absent. Occasional small units who still play drones without real actual military experience. Guys, believe me, if Russia sends at least 1,000 Shahid drones from Belarus border to Baltic countries, and if Russia sends a single drone battalion Rubicon, the most capable they have, but a single battalion to Suwalki corridor, they'll occupy it. It's 100%, it's 1,000%. The threat is way, way bigger than you might even imagine. And NATO chief saying about that stuff, guys, I'm again out of words. I know that I'm emotional about this topic because I see what is happening and I understand those threats. Take those seriously. And what NATO is doing is the worst possible thing. They encourage Putin to attack them, doing nothing about drones and airplanes, and with this stupid, clownish rhetorics. This guy should be fired, absolutely expelled from NATO. He is a stupid clown.
Is that they are saying if a plane would pose a threat, we have the authorities to do, if necessary, the ultimate. But if the plane is not posing a threat, we are not going to shoot it down. And then we will gently guide it outside the airspace. This is exactly what they should do.
Gently guide out, yeah. Alright, about Tomahawks once again. This week it's gonna be a decisive meeting in the White House between President Donald Trump and President Zelensky. Trump says he may give Tomahawks to Ukraine. Is he bluffing? This is the article from what? From the New York Times. Well, I think he could be bluffing, maybe even not. The probability is again very low for Ukraine to obtain those missiles. Our allies in the European Union, they ask for more air defense missiles to Ukraine and more systems. Hopefully Ukraine will get everything of that because Russia, after all, strikes Ukraine very hard. But even if the United States supply those missiles to Ukraine, somehow it will not be a bunch of those missiles. Just few of those, it is already understandable because there are not enough ground launchers for Tomahawk missiles. Maybe a couple of them are available somewhere. So I'm not pretty much optimistic about it. I hope that at least few of those will be supplied to Ukraine, so Ukraine could use them against Shahid factories, as I already mentioned you before. But anyways, I'm happy that there is the change in rhetorics of White House and White House officials, because before they just hated Ukraine, they hated Zelensky, and for them it was like clear that Ukraine is unable to win in this war, that Ukraine should obey Russian terms, give up its own territories and make some sort of the peace deal. But now I see that they press Russia more. So Pete Hexon, during the meeting in Europe, he calls for more support of Ukraine. Let's listen to this kind of the short clip.
Now, if this war does not end, if there is no path to peace in the short term, then the United States, along with our allies, will take the steps necessary to impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression. If we must take this step, the U.S. War Department stands ready to do our part in ways that only the United States can do. We remain clear-eyed about the fact that the most effective deterrents to Russian aggression are, number one, a lethal, capable, and European-led NATO, and number two, a combat-credible Ukrainian military able to defend itself and thereby continue to deter Russian aggression along NATO's border. Again, peace through strength.
I think a few months ago it would be unimaginable to hear it from Secretary of War. Well, he is actually Secretary of Defense. So something died in this forest. Something extraordinary happened that they changed their rhetorics. And I hope that on this wave of testosterone, the Department of War, together with Donald Trump, will give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles. But again, they're not speaking about direct military support, as it was with the previous White House administration. They're telling Europeans to purchase American weapons. That's it. You need to give us money to maintain our military production sector, and maybe we'll do something if Russia attacks you, but no, probably not. I do not believe that the United States under Donald Trump will deploy their forces to protect Baltic countries. No. And hear what Donald Trump tells about his future meeting with Zelensky.
We'll be talking about the war with him, and we'll be talking about, I mean, they want to go offensive. I'll make a determination on that, but they would like to go offensive, you know that, and we'll have to make a determination.
Interesting. So Ukraine wants to go offensive. I guess offensive deep inside Russia using some of the weapons and not on the front lines, because actually Ukraine doesn't have resources to advance fully strategically on the front lines as Ukraine did in late 2022 in Kherson and Kharkiv oblasts. I think speaking about the war in Ukraine with the current drone technology developments, it's not possible to offense like that, taking huge territories. No. So I think here he meant deep strikes inside Russia to harm Russian military production and refinery capabilities. Whoop. Whoop. Also, Trump said a couple of words about India purchasing Russian oil.
So I was not happy that India was buying oil. And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. Now I got to get China to do the same thing.
It could be interesting. So Modi promised not to purchase Russian oil for Donald Trump today. Well, we'll see in the coming days if it is really truthful information or not, because India really purchases lots of the Russian oil, almost the same amount as China does. And what is interesting, that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent today stated that United States may provide some of the mechanism for Donald Trump to apply 500% tariffs on China if China continues to purchase Russian oil. Here the mic is really terrible, so I'll increase the volume for you to hear it.
85 U.S. senators are willing to give President Trump the authority to put up to 500% tariffs on China for the purchase of Russian oil.
Nice. But still, I do not believe it. Well, maybe on some separate companies of China it is possible, but on entire China, just imagine how it could harm American economy. Well, maybe it's just one more rhetorics for United States of America in this United States-China war. By the way, today Donald Trump really stated that there is an economic war between United States and China. It is ongoing. So it's like one more potential lever which Donald Trump shows to China. You continue to do something wrong, well, we're gonna apply 500% of tariffs. Okay, you see it? You see? But whether Donald could apply those tariffs in real life, I don't think so. Oh, what's that? That's the Feodosian volcano in Crimea. You see how it erupts? Well, actually, you may call it an oil storage volcano that destroyed oil storage completely, like it's gone. There were a couple of the strikes of Ukrainian drones, 108 oil tanks, the rest were kaboomed by the next strike. Probably there are 2 oil tanks which are still okay, but it doesn't really matter in this case because the facility is simply unusable. Well guys, this video is already getting long, so stand by for my next updates. And my job is possible just because of your support on channel membership and on Patreon. For membership, you may just press join on this channel. For Patreon, the link is in the video description just below if you want to support my job. And guys, without you, I wouldn't be able to film those videos. So thank you so much for your kind support. And my friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.